Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to make the stuff that goes with the apples to make it delicious. So our recipe calls for 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. That's pretty much just the sugar that you would use to sweeten anything. So we're going to use this bag. I have 1/2 cup. So here's 1/2 cup. I'm going to measure that out. I'm going to put all my dry ingredients in this purple bowl so that I can mix it all up before I put on the apples, because think about it, apples are a little bit moist and I don't want like the flour to stick to the apples because that would taste yucky. We want to have sugar with it too and all the other good stuff. So first thing I need to do is 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. So when you are measuring, remember, it needs to be all the way to the top. So this is a bad measure. So I want to make sure, like we talked about earlier, that it's exact. So I'm going to get a butter knife out. And I want to almost have a heaping measure so that I can kind of push it off. Actually, that was perfect. I don't even need to do that. Okay. Whoop. Making a mess. That's what I'm good at. All right. So there. That's about to the top. That is 1/2 cup. So I'm going to pour it in. Next thing that my recipe calls for is 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. So here's all-purpose flour. Okay, flour is something that you definitely want to do the leveling off with. You don't want to pack it in because it would pack if you like tried to push it down. But flour, you don't want to do that. You want to just kind of like nicely smooth off the top. So I have a 1/4 cup to measure with. So I see I have a heaping amount here. Over my bag, see if I can't make a bigger mess. I'm going to take the flat edge of my knife and I'm going to just push it back into the bag and save that for another time. So see how it is nicely leveled off. So that is 1/4 cup that I'm going to put into here. All right, the next thing that the recipe calls for is 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So think about when you're doing your measuring, and you have your little spoons, okay? There's teaspoons and there's tablespoons, and they're totally different, so you don't want to mess that up. So I know a lot of you, when we have talked about conversions in the classroom, you have been talking about conversions from teaspoons to tablespoons. So I want for you to think a moment. How many teaspoons does it take to fill up a tablespoon? What do you think about that? Do you remember? The answer is 3. So it takes, for every teaspoon, you could fill it 3 times to fill in a tablespoon. So we're actually going to use that trick when we get to the next ingredient. But first of all, before I get ahead of myself, I need 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So here is 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So here's my cinnamon. 1/4 teaspoon doesn't seem like very much, but this stuff is pretty powerful. So you don't want to overdo it, or you might not even want to eat it because it'd be too potent. So like here I am again, too much. I want to level it off back into the container. All right, now it's a nice flat measure, see? So I'm going to dump that in. And then the next thing that we need is a tablespoon of lemon juice. That seems like a really weird thing to put in this recipe. The lemon juice is actually to go on the apples to keep them from browning, because as you know, when you've cut up apples, they turn brown pretty quick. That's oxidizing. That's when the air gets it, the oxygen in the air gets to the apples, it makes them turn brown. They still taste good, but they just don't look so pretty. So we'll put some of the lemon juice on top of the apples here. So I'm going to mix this up first. Okay, so I have all my ingredients mixed up nicely, evenly spread about. All right, there we go. And then let me get the lemon juice quick. I got the big daddy here. So we need a tablespoon of lemon juice. Well, I only brought out my teaspoon. So my question to you earlier was, how many teaspoons does it take to make a tablespoon? And the answer was 3. So I'm going to fill this bad boy 3 times and just pour it over top of my apples before I put this dry ingredient on top. So count with me here. 1, 2. And number 3. All right, and I'm just gonna give them a little toss with my hands. Since my hands are clean, since I'm cooking, everything will be good. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this dry ingredient over the top of my apples here. All right, let me see if I can position you guys better here. Here we go. I'm gonna just kind of sprinkle this over the top. Let's keep this closer. Sorry about that. All right. And then we're just going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my hands and just flip the apples around so that they are evenly coated. Because that dry substance is the yummy goodness that makes the apple pie oh so delicious. All right, very good. So this is what it looks like. Excellent.